Let's begin by addressing a common misconception. Art is not necessarily beautiful or pretty. Beauty is subjective and varies greatly from one culture to another, from one individual to another. More, art is not, again, necessarily something well crafted. While craftsmanship can play a significant role in art, it's not the sole defining characteristic. Art is a tricky term to define, and many have tried. It's such a comprehensive word that we could debate its meaning for ages, and indeed we have, for at least a few centuries now. For the purpose of this video, I'll define art as what feels right to me, but be warned that this definition might not cover it all. Art, in my view, is any man-made object or composition invested with intention that either changes our perception of reality or of one aspect of reality, or at the very least leaves our senses happier than before. This means that even found objects, like those used by artists such as Man Ray, can be considered art if they are invested with a new meaning. However, random or accidental creation, what we may call crapshoots, don't fall into this category. This point is worth stressing. A key component of art is its ability to change our perception of reality, or at least leave our senses more pleasant than before. This brings us to an important distinction, the difference between high art and low art. I'd call the first kind, the one that changes our perception of reality and broadens our horizons, high art. This type of art challenges us, provokes thoughts, and often disrupts our usual way of seeing the world. On the other hand, low art is primarily a feast for our senses. Please be aware that in this context, low doesn't mean lesser. It's simply a way to differentiate between the two kinds. Low art often includes work that were once disruptive, but have since become part of our cultural landscape. Low art is often essentially art history, meaning a collection of some things that have lost their disruptiveness, but still have an aesthetically or culturally pleasing effect. While low art can travel through the centuries, often almost unaffected, as long as it's not just an expression of a passing fad, high art has a unique challenge to meet. It's by definition only contemporary art. Let's unpack this idea a bit further and let's see why. High art is always only contemporary because you can't change a perception of reality unless you are living in the same temporal space as your viewers, as your audience or listeners. In other words, you can be a novelty only once. To give you just one practical example of many, the frescoes of Piero della Francesca were revolutionary at the time. Today, though, we enjoy them primarily for their aesthetic values, not for how disruptive they were of the canon when they were first painted. Even if you're an art historian, you can still enjoy them in an intellectual sense, appreciating their cultural significance, but you can't be shocked anymore by them like their contemporaries were. As this example shows, in a sense, many art pieces were born high art and then, growing old, so to speak, became low art when their disruptive function or aspects faded away, when the innovations they introduced became the new norm. The Beatles were disruptive in the 60s. Today, they wouldn't even get a return call from a recording label's representative. This transformation is common in art history. What starts as groundbreaking and challenging often becomes part of the canon, part of the cultural fabric over time. Rarely, even the opposite process can seem to take place, meaning a piece going from being low art to become high art. But if you look closely, this happens mostly with documentary type work and not with proper, so to speak, art pieces. Think about the many pictures taken in the past, often quite uninteresting at the time, but now showing us aspects of those past centuries that would be otherwise unknowable to us. There is though a few cases of works unappreciated at the time of their birth that were later discovered or rediscovered and gained fame, a bit like Vivian Maier's opus. But even then, I'd say that they got discovered, yes, but they didn't really change our current grasp on reality, meaning that they still are very much works of their own time. They often serve just as valuable historical documents appreciated for their insights into a particular time period. On the flip side, contemporary art is always, statistically, the worst collection of crap you can imagine, because it has not been colored by time. Basically, there is too much background noise. Time is often the best curator, with the caveat that the survival of a work of art is always through a mix of merit and sheer luck. Think how many masterpieces in the history of humanity have been melted to make weapons, raided, and subsequently lost, destroyed in wars, etc. The art that survives often does so through a combination of its intrinsic value and random chance. For contemporary art, the challenge lies in its immediacy. It hasn't yet been filtered through the lens of history. This means that while some contemporary pieces will be revered as masterpieces in the future, many others will fade into obscurity. The task for contemporary artists and critics is to navigate the vast sea of creations and try to identify what might stand the test of time. Spoiler alert, they will fail most of the times. And even when they will succeed, it will be mostly in the sense that the work selected by critics will be more likely to be preserved, not necessarily appreciated. This is because the process is inherently subjective and incredibly fraught with challenges. What resonates with one generation might be dismissed by the next. How art impacts our perception of reality is where the distinction between high and low art becomes particularly significant. High art has the power to shift paradigms. It challenges our preconceived notions and forces us to see the world differently. This can be achieved through various means: the subject matter, the technique, the context in which the art is presented. Take, for instance, the famous Marcel Duchamp's Fountain. This piece is a simple urinal presented as art. It was revolutionary. It questioned the very nature of art and the role of the artist. It made people rethink what will be or could be considered art, shifting the paradigm in a profound way. On the other hand, low art focuses on pleasing the senses. It might not challenge our perceptions in the same way, but it brings joy, comfort, and aesthetic pleasure. Beautiful landscape paintings, classical music, and decorative arts often fall into this category. They enrich our lives by adding beauty and harmony, even if they don't provoke deep thoughts, deep contemplation, deep reflection. Just to be clear, I wouldn't want Duchamp's Fountain in my living room, no matter its economic value, but I would gladly hang on my walls some Meinerist paintings, even if they are not worth as much. Interestingly, many art pieces exist at the intersection of high and low art. They're aesthetically pleasing enough, while also challenging viewers to think differently. This duality can make them particularly powerful, appealing to a broad audience while still pushing boundaries. Still, art appreciation remains deeply subjective. What resonates with one person might leave another cold. Our personal experiences and preferences also shape our art appreciation. Someone who grew up surrounded by classical music might have a deep appreciation for it, while someone else might find more meaning in punk rock, and it's perfectly fine. As creators, what this means, though, is that we should be clear with ourselves first and foremost about what we want to bring to the fore, what are we aiming at. These, besides how gifted or not we are, or we think we are. High art and low art serve different purposes, but they are both essential to our cultural landscape. And at the end of the day, the best art is the one that resonates with you. Personally, you are your very first audience. Thank you for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel for more discussion on art and creativity. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment below. I love to hear what art means to you. See you next time and happy pictures. Also, you might find interesting this video here.